My name is Sarah Mitchell. I'm 24 years old, and my family's house just burned to the ground 3 hours ago. And my father looked me dead in the eyes and told me to sleep outside because they claimed they had no room for me. Before I continue this story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. The smoke was still rising from what used to be our family home when those words left his mouth. The fire department had just finished hosing down the last of the flames, and the acrid smell of burned wood and melted plastic hung thick in the October air. I stood there on the front lawn, still in my pajamas and an old jacket I'd grabbed on my way out, watching my childhood home reduced to a skeletal frame of charred beams and collapsed walls. My father, Richard Mitchell, stood with my stepmother Linda, my half-brother Derek, and my half-sister Jessica. They were huddled together like survivors of a shipwreck, and I suppose in a way, we all were. But the way they stood, the four of them forming a tight circle that very deliberately excluded me, told me everything I needed to know about where I ranked in this family hierarchy. "Dad," I said, my voice hoarse from the smoke I'd inhaled. "What do you mean, sleep outside? Where am I supposed to go?" He wouldn't even look at me directly. His eyes skittered away, landing somewhere over my left shoulder. "Linda's sister has that apartment. It's only got 2 bedrooms. We need one for me and Linda, and Derek and Jessica will share the other one." "I can share with Jessica," I said immediately. "Like we used to when we were kids." Jessica, who was 21 and had always treated me like I was some kind of unfortunate charity case, wrinkled her nose. No thanks. I need my space. This is already going to be cramped enough." "There's a couch," I pressed. "I can sleep on the couch." Linda finally spoke up, her voice taking on that particular tone of false sweetness that I'd learned to dread over the 15 years she'd been my stepmother. "Sarah, honey, you're an adult now. You've been living in that converted garage apartment anyway. You're used to being on your own. Derek and Jessica are still in school. They need stability. You understand, don't you?" I felt something cold settle in my stomach. The garage apartment. Yes. I'd been living there for the past 18 months, ever since I'd graduated from community college. It was barely more than a studio, with a hot plate instead of a real stove and a bathroom so small you had to close the door to use the toilet. They'd charged me $600 a month for it, which was absurd considering it was on their property and probably violated half a dozen housing codes. But I'd paid it. Every month, on time, even when it meant working double shifts at the diner and picking up weekend gigs doing freelance bookkeeping. Because I was trying to save money. Because I had plans. Because I'd been working toward something they knew nothing about. "The garage apartment burned too," I said quietly. "Everything I own is gone." "You probably had renter's insurance though, right?" Derek chimed in. He was 19, a sophomore at State, and had the kind of confidence that comes from never having been told no in his entire life. "You can use that money to get a hotel or something." I hadn't had renter's insurance. I'd been putting every spare penny toward something else, something more important. But I wasn't about to explain that to them. "Where exactly do you expect me to sleep tonight?" I asked, looking at each of their faces in turn. "You have friends, don't you?" Linda said, and there was something almost cruel in how casual she made it sound. "I'm sure someone can put you up for a few days until you figure things out. You're resourceful, Sarah. You've always been independent." Independent. That was their code word for neglected, for overlooked, for the daughter who didn't quite fit into the new family configuration after my mother died and my father remarried within a year. The fire chief approached us then, his face grim beneath the soot. "Mr. Mitchell, we need to talk about the cause of the fire." My father straightened up, suddenly all business. "Yes, of course. What happened?" "Looks like it started in the main kitchen. Grease fire that got out of control. The range hood wasn't venting properly, and there was a buildup of flammable residue. When the fire started, it spread fast because of that. We found evidence of deferred maintenance. The electrical system was outdated. Some of the wiring was frayed. You're lucky everyone got out." I saw my father and Linda exchange a look. The house was old, a 1960s ranch that had been in my mother's family for generations. After she died, it had become my father's property, and he and Linda had let it fall into disrepair. They'd been talking about selling it for years, but never got around to fixing it up enough to get a decent price. Was anyone injured? The fire chief continued. No, my father said. We all made it out. Sarah here got out of her apartment and we got out of the main house. The fire chief nodded, making notes on his clipboard. You'll need to contact your insurance company immediately. In the meantime, do you have somewhere to stay? Yes, Linda said quickly. My sister has an apartment we can use. All of you. The fire chief glanced at me. There was a pause. I could feel the weight of it, heavy and suffocating. Sarah will be making her own arrangements, my father said finally. The fire chief looked at me, and I saw something like pity flash across his face. You have somewhere to go, miss? I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell him that no, I didn't have somewhere to go, that my family was abandoning me on the front lawn of our burned home like unwanted furniture. But pride is a funny thing. It makes you lie when the truth would serve you better. Yes, I heard myself say. I'll be fine. He nodded slowly, clearly not believing me, but not willing to push it. Well, good luck to all of you. The investigator will be in touch about the insurance claim. After he left, there was an awkward silence. In the distance, I could hear the neighbors talking, their voices low and shocked. The Hendersons from next door, the Chens from across the street, the Kowalskis from down the block. They were all watching. Everyone could see exactly what was happening here. Well, Linda said briskly, clapping her hands together. We should get going. Richard, can you call my sister and let her know we're on our way? Sarah, my father said. And for a moment, I thought he might actually show some backbone, some remnant of the man he'd been before my mother died. You're sure you'll be okay? Does it matter? I asked, and I hated how small my voice sounded. He flinched, but he didn't argue. He just nodded, pulled out his phone, and walked away to make the call. Linda and the kids headed toward their car, which had been parked on the street and had escaped the fire. I noticed they were carrying bags. They'd managed to save some of their belongings. Clothes, laptops, Jessica's ridiculous collection of designer handbags. I'd gotten out with nothing but the pajamas on my back and my phone, which had been charging on the nightstand next to where I'd been sleeping. As they loaded into the car, not one of them looked back at me. I stood there on the lawn, watching them drive away, and felt something shift inside me. It wasn't sadness. It wasn't even anger. Not yet. It was something colder, harder. It was clarity. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out and saw 3 missed calls and several texts from my best friend Rachel. The last text read, Sarah, I just drove by your house. Are you okay? Where are you? I called her back. Oh my God, Sarah! She picked up on the first ring. I saw the fire trucks. Are you hurt? I'm fine, I said. Physically, anyway. Where are you right now? Standing in front of what used to be my house. Alone? Alone. There was a pause. Your family left you there? They said they don't have room for me. Are you fucking kidding me? Rachel's voice rose to a pitch that probably alarmed her neighbors. Sarah, get in an Uber right now and come to my place. Right now. Rachel, I don't want to impose. Impose? Sarah, your house just burned down and your family abandoned you on the lawn. This is not imposing. This is me being a decent human being, which is apparently more than your own father can manage. Get your ass over here. Now. So I did. Rachel lived in a small apartment about 20 minutes away. She was a paralegal at a law firm downtown, and we'd been best friends since high school. She was one of the few people who knew the truth about my family situation, about how they treated me like an afterthought, a burden they'd inherited when my mother died. When I arrived, she took one look at me, still in my pajamas, smelling like smoke, probably looking like I'd been through a war, and pulled me into a hug so fierce it hurt. Okay, she said, finally releasing me. First things first. Shower. I'll get you some clothes. Then we're ordering pizza and you're going to tell me everything. An hour later, I was clean, dressed in Rachel's sweatpants and t-shirt, and sitting on her couch with a slice of pepperoni pizza I couldn't quite bring myself to eat. The shock was starting to wear off, and underneath it was an anger that felt like it might consume me whole. "They just left you there," Rachel kept saying, like she couldn't quite believe it. "Your dad actually said, 'Sleep outside'?" "He did. And they're all cozy in Linda's sister's apartment right now. 2 bedrooms. Apparently not enough space for me." Rachel set down her pizza and looked at me with an intensity that made me nervous. "Sarah, you know you can stay here as long as you need, right? But I think you need to do something about this." "Do what?" "They made their choice." "No, I mean legally. This isn't just shitty parenting, Sarah. There are actual legal issues here." I looked at her. "What do you mean?" She leaned forward. "You were paying rent for that garage apartment, right? $600 a month?" "Yeah. And now it's burned down, along with all your possessions. Do you have any kind of written lease?" "No. It was informal. Family arrangement. But you have proof you were paying? Bank transfers, canceled checks?" "Bank transfers, yeah. Every month for the past 18 months. Rachel's eyes gleamed. "That establishes you as a tenant, lease or no lease, which means they had certain legal obligations to you. And now that your unit has been destroyed, along with your possessions, there are liability issues. I don't want to sue my own family, Rachel. I'm not saying sue. Not yet, anyway. But Sarah, they can't just kick you out with nowhere to go, especially when you were a paying tenant and the fire was caused by their negligence. That fire chief said it himself. Deferred maintenance, code violations. Your father and Linda own that property, and they let it fall apart." I felt something stir inside me. Not quite hope, but something sharper. "So what are you saying?" "I'm saying you have rights here. More rights than they probably realize. And I'm saying that if they're going to treat you like this, they should at least face some consequences for it." I thought about my father's face when he told me to sleep outside. I thought about Linda's fake sweetness. I thought about Derek and Jessica, who couldn't be bothered to share a room so their sister wouldn't be homeless. "Tell me more," I said. Rachel grinned. "Now we're talking. First thing Monday morning, you're coming to my office. I want you to talk to my boss, Mr. Hendricks. He's a real estate attorney, specializes in property law and landlord-tenant disputes. He'll know exactly what your options are. I can't afford an attorney, Rachel. I lost everything in that fire. Initial consultation is free. And Sarah, if there's a case here, and I think there is, he might take it on contingency. But there's something else." "What?" She hesitated. "You know how you've been working on getting your real estate license? And taking those property law courses online?" My heart skipped. I'd been keeping that quiet from my family, not wanting to hear their inevitable dismissal of my ambitions. Only Rachel knew that I'd been studying, taking practice exams, preparing to take the licensing test next month. "Yeah," I said slowly. "You know more about this stuff than you think you do. You've been studying property law, tenant rights, real estate regulations. This is literally what you've been learning about." She was right. Over the past year, I'd become semi-obsessed with understanding the legal side of real estate. It had started as practical education for my planned career, but I'd gotten genuinely interested in the intricacies of property law, zoning regulations, housing codes. I'd aced every online course I'd taken. "So what do?" I asked. "Monday, we talked to Hendricks. But between now and then, I want you to write down everything you remember. Every detail about your rental arrangement, every conversation about the house maintenance, everything. If your dad and Linda want to play hardball, we'll play hardball right back." I nodded slowly. My phone buzzed on the coffee table. A text from my father. "Just checking that you found somewhere to stay. Let us know if you need anything." I stared at it, feeling that cold clarity settle over me again. Let us know if you need anything. Like it was my job to ask. My job to beg for help from my own family. I showed Rachel the text. She snorted. Classic. Make it seem like they're being helpful while doing absolutely nothing. What are you going to say? I thought about it. I could tell him the truth. That yes, I did need something. I needed basic human decency and a place to sleep. I could make him feel guilty. But something told me that would be wasted effort. Instead, I texted back. "All set. Thanks for checking." Rachel raised an eyebrow. "Really? If they want to pretend everything's fine, let them. They have no idea what's coming. That weekend passed in a blur. Rachel let me sleep in her spare room, which was really more of a closet with a twin bed, but it felt like a luxury compared to being on the street. On Saturday, she took me to Target and used her credit card to buy me basic necessities: underwear, a couple of outfits, toiletries, a cheap phone charger since mine had been in the fire. "You can pay me back when you're back on your feet," she said when I protested. "That's what friends do." I spent most of the weekend on my laptop. Rachel lent me her old one, documenting everything I could remember: dates, amounts, conversations. I went through my bank records and printed out every rent payment I'd made. I found old text messages from my father confirming the rental arrangement. I screenshotted everything. I also started researching. Using the property law knowledge I'd gained from my courses, I dug into California tenant rights, fire damage liability, premises liability law. The more I read, the angrier I got, and the more confident. My family had no idea they'd just made the worst mistake of their lives. Monday morning, I put on one of the new outfits Rachel had bought me, simple black slacks and a white blouse, and went with her to her law office. Hendricks & Associates was a mid-sized firm in a sleek downtown building. Rachel's boss, Martin Hendricks, was a man in his late 50s with silver hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. "So," he said after Rachel had introduced us and we'd settled into his office, "Rachel tells me you have an interesting situation." I told him everything. The fire, my father's words, the family abandoning me, my status as a rent-paying tenant in the garage apartment, the fire chief's comments about deferred maintenance and code violations. Hendricks listened without interrupting, making occasional notes on a legal pad. When I finished, he sat back in his chair and steepled his fingers. "How much do you know about tenant law, Sarah?" "A fair amount, actually. I've been studying for my real estate license. I've taken courses in property law." He looked interested. "Then you probably know that even without a written lease, your regular rent payments establish you as a tenant with legal rights." "Yes. And you probably also know that landlords, even family members acting as landlords, have a legal duty to maintain their properties in habitable condition." "The implied warranty of habitability," I said, "which includes functioning electrical systems and proper fire safety measures." Hendricks smiled. "Very good. So you understand that if the fire was caused by your father's failure to maintain the property, he may be liable for damages to you as a tenant." I suspected that might be the case. "There's more," he continued. "California has very specific laws about uninhabitable premises. When a rental unit becomes uninhabitable through no fault of the tenant, the landlord has certain obligations. They must provide alternative housing, or they must return the rent, or in some cases, they may be liable for the tenant's relocation costs and replacement of lost property." I felt my pulse quicken. "And telling me to sleep outside is essentially an illegal eviction. Even if they claim they had nowhere for you to stay, they still had legal obligations to you as a tenant. They can't just abandon you without recourse. So what are my options?" Hendricks leaned forward. "Several. First, you could file a claim against their homeowner's insurance. As a tenant who lost property in the fire, you're entitled to compensation. Second, you could pursue a civil suit for negligent property maintenance, illegal eviction, and emotional distress. Third, and this is where it gets interesting, you mentioned your father said the house was in your mother's family for generations? Yes. It was my grandmother's house originally. My mother inherited it when my grandmother died, 15 years ago. Then when my mother died, it went to my father. Was there a will?" I paused. "I don't know. I was 9 when my mother died. I never saw any paperwork. Do you know what your grandmother's will said? If there was one?" "No." Hendricks exchanged a glance with Rachel. "That's something we should look into. Because if your grandmother left the property to your mother with specific provisions about inheritance, and if those provisions weren't properly executed, there could be issues with the current ownership." My mouth went dry. "You think my father might not actually own the house?" "I think it's worth investigating. At minimum, if your mother's estate was never properly settled, you might be entitled to a share." And if your grandmother's will had specific language about keeping the property in the bloodline, which is common with family homes, then your father's ownership might be more complicated than he thinks. How would I find out? We'd need to pull records from the county recorder's office, look at deeds and probate records. It would take some digging, but it's definitely worth doing. Rachel, can you start on that? Absolutely, Rachel said, already making notes. Hendricks turned back to me. Here's what I'm thinking, Sarah. This case has potential, multiple avenues for recovery. But more than that, it's the kind of case that might make your family realize they can't just treat you like you don't matter. Would you be interested in pursuing this? What would it cost? For the tenant issues and fire damage, I could take it on a contingency basis. I'd get a percentage of whatever we recover, but you wouldn't pay anything up front. For the property ownership research, that would be hourly, but I'd be willing to do some preliminary investigation for free, just to see if there's something there. I looked at Rachel, who nodded encouragingly. Then I looked back at Hendricks and felt that cold clarity settle over me one more time. Let's do it, I said. Good. I'll need you to sign a client agreement, and then we'll get started. Rachel, let's pull together everything we need. Bank records, communications with the father, fire department report. Sarah, I'm going to need you to write out a detailed timeline of everything that's happened. Can you do that? Already done, I said, pulling out the folder I'd prepared over the weekend. Bank statements, text messages, timeline, everything I could think of. Hendricks took the folder and flipped through it, his eyebrows rising. This is excellent work, very thorough. Like I said, I've been studying property law. He smiled. I can tell. You know what, Sarah? I think you're going to do very well in real estate when you get your license. You've got the mind for it. It was the first time in longer than I could remember that someone who wasn't Rachel had said something genuinely encouraging to me. I felt an unexpected sting in my eyes and blinked it away. Thank you, I managed. All right, Hendricks said, all business again. Let's get to work. We're going to make sure your family understands exactly what they did wrong, and we're going to make sure you're compensated for it. Over the next 2 weeks, things moved fast. Hendricks filed a claim with my father's homeowner's insurance on my behalf, documenting my status as a tenant and my losses in the fire. He also sent a formal letter to my father, outlining his legal obligations and demanding compensation for my relocation costs, my lost property, and the illegal eviction. My father's response came in the form of an angry phone call. Sarah, what the hell is this? He demanded when I answered. You hired a lawyer? Against your own family? You told me to sleep outside, Dad. That's not what We were in shock, Sarah. The house had just burned down. We weren't thinking clearly. You had room for Derek and Jessica, but not for me. They're younger, I was a paying tenant in your property. You had legal obligations to me. There was a pause. Who's been putting these ideas in your head? Nobody's putting ideas in my head. I know my rights. This is ridiculous. You can't sue your own family. I'm not suing. Not yet. I'm just making sure you fulfill your legal obligations to me. Unless you'd rather I did sue? Another pause. I could hear Linda in the background, her voice sharp and angry, though I couldn't make out the words. What do you want? My father asked finally. Read the letter your lawyer should have received by now. It's all spelled out. Compensation for my lost property, reimbursement for my relocation costs, and my last month's rent returned since the unit became uninhabitable. That's over $10,000. That's what my property was worth, Dad. My laptop, my clothes, my furniture, my books, everything. All gone because your house wasn't up to code. The fire was an accident that happened because you didn't maintain the property properly. The fire inspector's report is very clear about that. I could hear him breathing hard on the other end of the line. You've changed, Sarah. I don't even recognize you anymore. No, Dad. I just finally figured out that I don't have to accept being treated like I don't matter. He hung up. That night, I got a series of texts from Jessica. They started out angry. How could you do this to Dad? He's so stressed. And devolved into insults. You always were selfish. This is so typical of you. Derek sent a few too, along similar lines. I didn't respond to any of them. There was no point. But Rachel, reading the texts over my shoulder, was furious. God, they're unbelievable. They abandon you, and now they're acting like you're the bad guy. That's how it always works with them, I said. I'm supposed to just accept whatever they do and never complain. Well, fuck that. Did you see what Hendricks found? I looked up sharply. About the property? She grinned. Oh, yeah. He pulled the probate records from your mother's estate. Sarah, this is huge. My heart started pounding. What did he find? Your grandmother's will. She left the house to your mother, but with a specific provision. If your mother died before the house was sold, half the property was supposed to go to you as the only grandchild. Your father was only supposed to have a life estate, meaning he could live there. But he couldn't sell it without your consent. And when he died or moved out, the full ownership would revert to you. I felt the room spin. What? Your father violated the terms of the will. He took full ownership and put it in his and Linda's names. He never should have been able to do that. How did he get away with it? Probably because you were a minor when your mother died, and nobody was looking out for your interests. The probate court should have appointed a guardian ad litem to protect your rights, but it looks like they didn't. Your father just slid through the process, and nobody caught it. So what does this mean? It means, Sarah, that you're part owner of that property, or rather you should have been. And now that it's burned down, and the insurance is going to pay out for it, you're entitled to half of that insurance money. I couldn't breathe. How much are we talking about? The house was insured for $400,000. $200,000. Half of that was supposed to be mine. Oh my God, I whispered. Hendricks is drafting a formal claim right now. This is going to get ugly, Sarah. Your dad is going to fight this. Let him fight. He stole from me. He stole my inheritance. Rachel squeezed my shoulder. I know, and we're going to get it back. The next morning, Hendricks filed the formal claim with the insurance company and sent a copy to my father's attorney. The response was swift and explosive. My father showed up at Rachel's apartment that evening. I heard the pounding on the door and knew immediately who it was. Don't open it, Rachel said, but I shook my head. I have to face him eventually. I opened the door. My father stood there, his face red with fury. Behind him, I could see Linda in the car, watching. You're claiming you own half the house, he spat. That's insane. It's what Grandma's will said. Your grandmother left everything to your mother, and your mother left everything to me. Mom died without a will, Dad, and Grandma's will specifically said that if Mom died before the house was sold, half of it would go to me. You know that. You had to have seen that will when you went through probate. He faltered. Just for a second, but I saw it. He had seen it. He'd known. You were 9 years old, he said, but his voice was weaker now. The court gave me custody of you and control of any inheritance. I was acting in your best interest. By taking my half of the house and putting Linda's name on the deed. His jaw clenched. We needed to refinance, to pay for improvements. What improvements, Dad? The house was falling apart. The fire inspector said the wiring was ancient and the kitchen was a fire hazard. You didn't improve anything. You let it rot. I was going to give you your share eventually. When? After you sold it and spent the money? After I was too old to do anything about it? You, ungrateful? He stopped himself, breathing hard. After everything I did for you. I raised you. I gave you a home. You charged me rent to live in a garage apartment on property that was half mine to begin with. That stopped him cold. I could see the realization hitting him, the understanding that he'd been making me pay rent to live on my own property. You owe me, Dad, I continued, my voice steady despite the rage burning in my chest. You owe me $200,000, half the insurance payout. And you owe me 18 months of rent that you never had the right to collect. $600 a month for 18 months. That's another $10,800. I don't have that kind of money. You're about to get $400,000 from the insurance company. You can give me my half. That money is supposed to rebuild the house, to buy a new place. Then you should have thought of that before you stole my inheritance. Linda had gotten out of the car now and was walking up behind him. You listen here, she started, her voice venomous. but I cut her off. No, you listen. You've treated me like garbage since the day you married my father. You turned him against me. You convinced him I didn't matter, and you made damn sure your precious Derek and Jessica got everything while I got scraps. Well, guess what? I'm not your victim anymore. I know my rights. I know the law. And I'm going to get what's mine. You're destroying this family, Linda hissed. No, you destroyed this family. I'm just refusing to be destroyed with it. My father looked at me with something I'd never seen before. Not anger, not disappointment, fear. He was afraid of me. You're going to regret this, he said quietly. You're going to wake up one day and realize you threw away your family for money. You threw me away first, Dad. You told me to sleep outside. Remember? He flinched. Without another word, he turned and walked back to the car. Linda followed, shooting me a look of pure hatred. After they drove away, I realized I was shaking. Rachel put her arm around me. You okay? I don't know. Did I just really do that? Hell yes, you did. Sarah, I'm so proud of you. I let out a shaky laugh. I can't believe this is happening. Believe it. You're fighting back, and you're going to win. The next few weeks were a blur of legal maneuvering. My father hired his own attorney, a bulldog named Cramner who tried every tactic to deny my claim. He argued that the probate court's previous ruling stood, that I'd waited too long to challenge it, that I had no proof of my grandmother's intentions. But Hendricks was better. He had the original will, filed with the county. He had the probate record showing that no guardian ad litem had been appointed for me. He had the deed showing my father had violated the terms of the will by putting Linda's name on the property. Most damning of all, he had my bank statements showing I'd been paying rent on property that was rightfully half mine. The insurance company, caught in the middle, froze the payout until the ownership question could be resolved. My father was livid. He called me repeatedly, leaving voicemails that went from angry to pleading to threatening. I saved every one of them. Evidence. Meanwhile, Rachel had helped me file for emergency assistance and unemployment. I'd lost my job at the diner because I had no transportation to get there anymore. My car had been parked too close to the house and had been damaged by falling debris. But with some temporary financial help, I could keep studying for my real estate exam. 6 weeks after the fire, Hendricks called me into his office. We have a problem, he said. My heart sank. What? Your father's attorney is proposing a settlement. He wants to offer you $50,000 to go away. 50? I'm entitled to 200. I know, and that's what I told him. But here's the thing, Sarah. If we go to court, this could drag on for months, maybe years. And while I think we'd win, there's always a risk. Courts don't like overturning old probate rulings, even when they were done wrong. So, you think I should take it? No. I think you should counteroffer. We ask for $175,000, plus the 18 months of rent, plus reimbursement for your lost property. That's about $200,000 total. We offer to accept that amount in exchange for signing away any future claims. Why would they agree to that? Because if they don't, we take this to court, and it becomes public. Your father would have to explain in open court why he stole his daughter's inheritance, charged her rent on property she partially owned, and then left her homeless after a fire. The publicity alone would destroy him. And if we win, which I think we would, he'd owe the full amount plus legal fees, which could be substantial. I thought about it. $175,000. It wasn't the full $200,000 I was entitled to, but it was close, and it would be over. What do you think I should do? I asked. What do you want out of this, Sarah? Is it about the money or is it about making them pay? I considered that carefully. Honestly, I want both. I want the money I'm entitled to, and I want them to face consequences for what they did. But more than anything, I want to move on with my life. I don't want to be tied to them for years of litigation. Hendricks nodded. Then I think we counteroffer. Push for the full amount, but be willing to negotiate. Get as much as we can, make them pay, and then move forward. Okay, do it. The negotiations took another 3 weeks. My father's attorney tried to lowball again. $75,000. We held firm at $200. They came back with $100. We countered with $190. They offered $125. Finally, we settled at $160,000, plus the $10,800 in rent reimbursement, plus $15,000 for my lost property. $185,800 total. The day we signed the settlement agreement, I sat in Hendrik's office with my father and Linda across the table. Derek and Jessica were conspicuously absent. My father wouldn't look at me. Linda's face was like stone. "This is a full and final settlement," Cramner, my father's attorney, intoned. "Upon payment of the settlement amount, Sarah Mitchell agrees to release all claims against Richard and Linda Mitchell related to the property, the fire, and any inheritance disputes." "Agreed," Hendrik said. I signed the papers. My father signed. Linda signed, her pen stabbing at the paper. "The funds will be transferred within 5 business days," Cramner said. "Acceptable," Hendricks replied. There was an awkward moment where nobody moved. Then my father stood up abruptly. "I hope you're happy," he said to me. His voice was hollow. "I'm not happy, Dad. I'm just done being your victim. We're done. After this, we're done. You understand that? You're not part of this family anymore." Something twisted in my chest, but I kept my voice steady. "You made that clear when you told me to sleep outside." He turned and walked out. Linda followed without a word. After they left, Hendricks leaned back in his chair. "How are you feeling?" "Honestly, I don't know. Relieved. Angry. Sad. That's all normal. Sarah, you did the right thing here. You stood up for yourself. You made them face consequences for their actions. That takes courage. I just wish it hadn't had to be this way." "I know. But sometimes the hardest thing and the right thing are the same thing." 5 days later, the money hit my bank account. $185,800. I sat on Rachel's couch, staring at my phone, watching the numbers, still not quite believing it was real. "Holy shit," Rachel said, looking over my shoulder. "Sarah, you're rich." "I'm not rich. I'm just finally getting what should have been mine all along." "What are you going to do with it?" "I'd been thinking about that. First, I'm going to pay you back for everything you've spent on me. With interest. Sarah, you don't have to." "Yes, I do. You saved my life, Rachel. Literally. When my own family left me with nothing, you took me in. That matters." She hugged me. "Okay, but not too much interest. Second, I'm going to get my own place. Nothing fancy, just a small apartment I can afford. I want to put most of this money away, invest it, save it for the future. Smart. And third, I'm going to finish getting my real estate license. Use some of this money to really commit to it. Maybe take some additional courses, get certified in property management. Turn this into a real career." Rachel grinned. "Look at you, being all responsible and future-oriented." "I learned from the best," I said, bumping her shoulder with mine. But that night, alone in Rachel's spare room, I let myself cry. Not because I was sad, exactly, but because something had ended. My relationship with my father, whatever scraps of family connection I'd been clinging to, was over. I'd burned that bridge and salted the earth, and I didn't regret it, but I grieved it anyway. 2 months later, I passed my real estate licensing exam on the first try. I scored in the top 10%. When I got the results, I called Rachel and we went out to celebrate. "I'm so proud of you," she said, raising her glass. "Look how far you've come. 2 months ago, you were homeless and broke. Now you've got money in the bank, a license, and a future. None of this would have been possible without you. And none of it would have happened if you hadn't been strong enough to fight back. Sarah, most people in your situation would have just accepted it. They would have let their family walk all over them. But you didn't. You stood up. You learned your rights. You fought. I couldn't have done it without knowing the law," I said. "If I hadn't been studying property law, I would never have known I had a case." "Exactly. Your knowledge was your power. That's what this whole thing proved." She was right. Everything I'd learned, all those hours studying online courses and reading about real estate law and tenant rights, had been the key to fighting back. Without that knowledge, I would have been helpless. The following week, I started working for a small real estate firm, specializing in property management. The owner, a woman named Patricia Reeves, had been impressed by my knowledge and my story. "You've got a fire in you," she'd said during my interview. Pun intended. I need people who understand that this business isn't just about selling houses. It's about understanding people's rights, protecting tenants, making sure landlords follow the rules. You get that? I do. Good. Welcome aboard. The work was challenging but satisfying. I helped tenants understand their rights. I made sure landlords maintained their properties properly. I became something of a specialist in dealing with problem situations: fires, floods, landlord-tenant disputes. I had a personal investment in seeing that people were treated fairly. 3 months after starting the job, I found my own apartment. Nothing fancy. A 1-bedroom in a decent neighborhood, about twice the size of the garage apartment I'd lost. I furnished it simply, saving most of my settlement money. Every time I walked in the door, I felt a surge of pride. This was mine. No one could tell me to sleep outside. No one could take it away. I didn't hear from my family for almost 6 months after the settlement. Not a call, not a text, nothing. It was like I'd ceased to exist for them. Then one day, I got a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Sarah?" It was Jessica's voice. "Yes? It's Jessica. Can we talk?" I almost hung up, but curiosity got the better of me. "What do you want?" I wanted to apologize for how we treated you after the fire. I waited. She continued. "Mom and Dad have been fighting a lot about money. The insurance payout wasn't as much as they thought it would be after they paid you. And they bought a new house, but it's smaller and everyone's cramped and..." She trailed off. "They're miserable. And Derek and I have been talking, and we realized how awful we were to you." "Okay. And I wanted you to know I'm sorry. We should have made room for you. We should have stood up for you. Yes, you should have. Is there any chance we could, I don't know, get coffee sometime? Talk?" I thought about it. Part of me wanted to say no, to maintain the boundary I'd drawn. But another part of me remembered that Jessica was my sister, even if we were only half related. She was 21, practically still a kid. She'd been following our parents' lead. "Maybe," I said finally, "but not yet. I'm not ready. I understand. But Sarah, if you ever want to reach out, I'm here. I mean it. Thanks." After I hung up, I wasn't sure how I felt. Vindicated? Sad? Both? Rachel, when I told her about it, shrugged. "They're probably realizing that actions have consequences. They thought they could treat you like garbage and you'd just take it. Now they're dealing with the fallout. Part of me wants to forgive them. And part of you wants them to suffer more?" I laughed. "Maybe. Both are valid, Sarah. You don't owe them anything. But if you decide you want to rebuild some kind of relationship with Jessica, that's your choice. Just make sure you're doing it for you, not for them." I thought about that advice a lot over the following weeks. What did I want? I'd gotten my money. I'd gotten justice of a sort. I'd proven that I couldn't be pushed around. But forgiveness, that was harder. A year after the fire, I was doing well. I'd been promoted at work. My savings account was healthy. I'd made new friends through my job. I'd even started dating someone, a guy named Marcus who worked in commercial real estate and who thought my story was badass. I was happy. Or at least, I was content. I'd built a life for myself, independent of my family, based on my own merits and hard work. And then my father had a heart attack. Linda called me. Her voice was shaking. "Sarah, it's your father. He's in the hospital. It's serious." I felt my stomach drop. What happened? Heart attack. They're saying it's bad. "Sarah, can you come?" I wanted to say no. I wanted to tell her that they'd made it clear I wasn't part of the family anymore. But I couldn't. Whatever else he was still my father. "I'll be there," I said. The hospital was across town. I drove there in a daze, memories flooding back. My father teaching me to ride a bike. My father at my elementary school graduation. My father before my mother died, when he was still whole. still present. My father telling me to sleep outside. Linda was in the waiting room with Derek and Jessica. They all looked up when I walked in. Jessica immediately stood and walked over, pulling me into an awkward hug. "Thank you for coming," she whispered. I nodded, not trusting my voice. "He's in surgery," Linda said. Her eyes were red from crying. "They're doing a bypass. The doctors say the next few hours are critical." We waited. It was strange being in that room with them. Derek avoided looking at me. Linda kept twisting her hands together. Jessica sat next to me, close but not touching. "I'm glad you came," Jessica said quietly. "I wasn't sure you would." "I wasn't sure either. Sarah, I know I said this before, but I really am sorry. For all of it. We were horrible to you." "Yes, you were." She flinched but nodded. "You had every right to do what you did. Taking the money, I mean. It was yours." "I know. Mom and Dad, they're never going to admit they were wrong. You know that, right?" "I know. But Derek and I, we get it now. We see how they treated you. How they always treated you. Like you didn't matter." I looked at her. She seemed older than her 22 years. Like she'd grown up in the past year. "Thank you," I said finally, "for saying that." After 4 hours, a doctor came out. The surgery went well. He's stable. He's going to need a lot of recovery time, but he should make a full recovery. Linda burst into tears of relief. Derek hugged her. Jessica squeezed my hand. "Can we see him?" Linda asked. "Immediate family only, and only for a few minutes." Linda, Derek, and Jessica got up. Linda paused and looked at me. "Are you coming?" It was an olive branch, maybe. An acknowledgement that despite everything, I was still family. "No," I said. "I'm glad he's okay, but I think it's better if I don't." Linda nodded slowly. She looked like she wanted to say something, but didn't. They went through the doors to the ICU, leaving me alone in the waiting room. I sat there for a while, thinking. My father had almost died, and my first thought hadn't been grief. It had been anger. Anger that he'd never apologized. Anger that even now, even facing mortality, he couldn't admit he'd been wrong. I left the hospital without seeing him. 2 weeks later, I got a letter in the mail. It was from my father, written in his shaky handwriting. "Sarah," it began. "The doctor says I need to reduce stress. Part of that means dealing with unfinished business. I won't apologize for doing what I thought was best with the house, but I will say I'm sorry for telling you to sleep outside. That was wrong. You're my daughter, and you deserved better than that. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I just wanted you to know that I know I hurt you. Dad." I read it 3 times. It wasn't much. It wasn't even really a full apology, but it was something. I wrote back, "Dad, thank you for the letter. I'm glad you're recovering. I can't forget what happened, and our relationship will never be what it was. But I appreciate you acknowledging that you hurt me. That matters. Sarah." I didn't hear from him after that, but Jessica started texting me occasionally. Just little things. A funny meme, a picture of her cat, a "hope you're doing well." I started responding. Slowly, carefully, we began rebuilding something. Not what we'd had before, but something new. Derek reached out too, eventually. "I was a dick," his text said. "I'm sorry. You didn't deserve how we treated you." I told him I appreciated it. He was still my brother, even if he'd acted like he wasn't. Linda never apologized. I didn't expect her to. 2 years after the fire, I was promoted to senior property manager at the firm. I was making good money, had built up a solid reputation in the industry, and was considering branching out on my own eventually. I'd also reconnected with Jessica properly. We met for coffee regularly now. She'd transferred to a different college, one closer to home, and she was studying social work. "I want to help people who've been screwed over by the system," she told me. "Like you were." "That's good," I said. "The world needs more people like that." "I learned from the best," she said, echoing what I'd said to Rachel so long ago. I never fully reconciled with my father or Linda. We were civil when we had to be, at family functions that Jessica convinced me to attend occasionally. But the warmth was gone. The trust was gone. They'd proven who they were, and I'd learned to accept that. But I'd also learned something more important. I didn't need their approval. I didn't need their love, conditional and unreliable as it had been. I had built my own life, on my own terms, using my own knowledge and strength. The fire had taken my home. My family had taken my dignity. But I'd taken it all back, with interest. 3 years after the fire, I opened my own real estate firm specializing in tenant advocacy and property management. The first case I took was representing a young woman whose landlord had tried to evict her illegally after a flood damaged her apartment. I won her case and got her 3 months free rent plus damages. "How did you know all this stuff?" she asked me afterward, amazed. "I learned the hard way," I told her. "And now I use what I learned to help people like you." She hugged me, crying with relief. And I thought about myself 3 years ago, standing on the lawn of my burned house, watching my family drive away. That girl had felt so powerless. But she'd had power all along. She just hadn't known it yet. Knowledge is power. The law is power. And refusing to be a victim is the greatest power of all. Last month, I got an invitation in the mail. Jessica was getting married. "I would be honored if you'd be my maid of honor," the handwritten note inside said. "You're the strongest person I know, and I want you standing beside me." I RSVP'd yes. At the wedding, my father walked Jessica down the aisle. He looked older, grayer, diminished somehow. When he passed me sitting in the front row, our eyes met. He nodded slightly. I nodded back. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was acknowledgement. We'd both moved on in our own ways. At the reception, Linda tried to make small talk. "You're doing well for yourself," she said, eyeing my designer dress, one I'd bought with money I'd earned myself. "I am. Good. That's good." It was the closest thing to approval I'd ever get from her. I took it and moved on. But the best moment came when I was standing at the bar, waiting for a drink, and an older woman approached me. "Excuse me, are you Sarah Mitchell?" "Yes. I'm Jessica's future mother-in-law. She's told me so much about you, about what you did, how you stood up for yourself after the fire. I just wanted to tell you, I think you're remarkable. My own daughter is going through something similar with her ex-husband, property disputes and custody issues, and I told her about you. You're an inspiration." I felt tears prick at my eyes. "Thank you. That means a lot. Keep doing what you're doing," she said, squeezing my arm. "The world needs more people who refuse to be pushed around." As I drove home that night, I thought about the journey I'd been on. From the girl standing on the lawn, homeless and abandoned, to the woman I was now, successful, independent, strong. My family had tried to break me. They'd tried to make me believe I didn't matter, that I should just accept whatever scraps they threw me. But I'd refused. I'd learned my rights. I'd fought back. I'd won. And in doing so, I'd discovered something more valuable than any settlement money. My own power. My own worth. The fire had destroyed my house. But from those ashes, I'd built something stronger. Something that could never be burned down. This story teaches us that knowledge is the ultimate weapon against injustice, and that understanding your legal rights can transform you from victim to victor. When families betray us and systems fail us, education and determination can level the playing field in ways that raw emotion never could. Have you ever been in a situation similar to this title? Share your story in the comments below. And if you believe in standing up for yourself, knowing your rights, and refusing to accept mistreatment from anyone, even family, give it a like and subscribe for more stories like this. Let me know where you're watching from.